Okay, the mics are on. Call the meeting to order. Are there any items to be added?
Your Worship, we have three other business items that members of council have advised me of. The first relates to temporary truck routes, and that's raised by Councillor Cirillo. The second is Canada's Democracy Week, raised by Councillor O'Neill. And the third is the letter from Ball Sports regarding advanced voting locations, and that's raised by Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, I like that job.
Voting locations, okay.
Gates.
We've received a letter from West about the Port Metro Vancouver and the coal decision, so I just want to put that on there, and then also regarding the medical marijuana licensing letter we received as well.
Which letter? Sorry.
From Virginia Lovell.
Oh, a citizen's letter.
Yes.
Okay, not the government. Okay, and May. You have one?
Oh, no.
No. Oh, no. You might have had one, but
No,
we're not going to
no,
get through
I
this.
don't.
Okay, the late afternoon is becoming busier. Anybody else? Okay. Madam Clerk.
First item are minutes of the council and committee meeting held Monday, September 8th. The recommendation is for the committee to approve those minutes.
Second.
Councillor Reid, Councillor Hodge, all in favor, opposed, carried.
Our second item is a delegation from Mr. James Corea of 401 Foster Avenue, and he's here to speak regarding Bosa properties offered to tenants of Medallion Court. So that's Mr. Corea to come forward.
Clear, that's 401-519 Boston. 401 Medallion Court. Good day, James. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. I'd like to thank the mayor and the delegation for agreeing to see me. I work at the Tri-Cities now, but I'm not here in that capacity. I'm here as a resident and a tenant at Medallion Court. I'm familiar with many meetings throughout the day, and sometimes when we take a lot of meetings, we forget to put a face on some of the things that we're discussing. So I'm the face. So I came here on the 9th of the 9th of the 9th. Yeah, so I'm celebrating 5 years in a couple of days. And I found Medallion Court after 10 days of looking while staying at the Days Inn Hotel on Kingsway. I had to learn the transit system, everything, and found this property. And it was a great property to me. So after having living there for 5 years, and realizing, of course, that with Bosa buying that we're going to have to relocate, I just came to emphasize what the impact will be to families who are moving to Coquitlam from many various parts of the world, because certain parts of here are a really good area to move into because of the price and because of the availability. I have 3 daughters, 13, 11, and 9. They attend Hillcrest, Banting, and Roystons. 2 of them are in the gifted program. One of them, for the first time, she wrote an essay, won Fire Chief of the Day, and was escorted by our fine mayor around the city. And she has been doing very well ever since. With me relocating, I have to try to find the same programs to keep my daughters in those programs. So it's not just about finding a new place. It's about finding a place that doesn't upset the education that my children have gotten and are doing so well at. Additionally, because we are spending, I think it would be $13.92 per month for a 3-bedroom with a basement property, finding that price for that space will be next to impossible. So it's either we move to a smaller place for the same price, or move to a larger place, or same size place for a lot more money. Relocation costs. I was told by Bosa Properties that relocation involves getting a few guys together for some beers and just, bring everybody. Not everyone has that facility. So relocation costs are another issue. So many families who have recently settled to Canada and have made lives for themselves are going to be impacted very heavily by this relocation. And I think that while we acknowledge that Bosa Properties is actually obeying the law and even going beyond that, because it's supposed to supply 1 month's rent. They're supplying 2. I recently got a letter last week stating that they're going to do even more than that. So they are moving in the right direction. But I think that we should go beyond just fulfilling the legal requirement and having not only citizens who are conscious of what's going on, but corporate citizens who have a conscience as well. Many of these families will be impacted very heavily, and especially as a city, we should encourage these corporations to have a conscience and to do more for the citizens, because they're in fact corporate citizens of Coquitlam as well. Is that my time?
It was pretty darn good.
Great message.
Well, I thank you very much for that. And I will make the comment, because your daughter was a delightful fire chief for the day. She pretty much had all of our firefighters were enamored by her, and I hope one day she becomes fire chief.
She has aspirations of being the next Ariana Grande.
Okay, either one. So I've got Greg, Terry. May, did you want him? Okay, Terry.
Oh, hi. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming in. It is great to get the human face. I went to one of Blue Sky's open houses as well and talked to residents as well. So you talked about, I just want to get clarification where you live. You talked about a 3-bedroom basement property.
We have a 3-bedroom, talking about that includes a basement.
It includes a basement?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay, good. So a 3-bedroom and a basement.
Yes.
So it's not a basement suite or something.
Correct.
Okay, good. And so that's, I just wanted clarification there from you on that. That's fine. All the rest of my questions, I think, are going to be to staff, because you mentioned legal requirements.
Yes.
And I also want an update on the status of the Blue Sky Properties proposal
Yes.
As well, because nothing is etched in stone regarding this.
Correct.
Even the proposed development. So
I do have an update on that I brought with me, if you'd like me to share that.
I'd ask staff to perhaps update us on what the current policy is. I believe that since we haven't adopted a new affordable housing strategy yet, but I recall that when we started this process 2 years ago, that the interim rental policy was going to stay in place, and the rental policy that we had in the old affordable housing strategy was going to stay in place for the duration until the new housing strategy was adopted. Now, if that's not the case, I'd like to find out what the rental housing policy is now, and does that actually have the weight of being a legal requirement? In what sense is policy binding, or is it a guideline? So this is things we need to hear from staff. Or whichever lamb wants to be led to the slaughter on that one.
Well, we could probably adopt a slightly less violent metaphor. Jim.
Thank you, Worship, and good afternoon. Is this on? Working now? No. Okay. Your Worship, being aware of the delegation coming forward today, we do have some information in hand if Council is interested about the Blue Sky project. But turning specifically to Councillor O'Neill's questions, where we're at right now with this application, it's just the tail end of the Section 879 consultation process. Council recall, with an OCP amendment, we go through a consultation process, and I think we've got another week or so with that. And so with that feedback in hand, we would then be reporting that out to Council at some point. We're also dealing with the applicant. It's a fairly significant project. This is a major, major project. And so there's been back and forth between staff and our initial reviews and the applicant, so we're continuing with that. Both in terms of the rental housing aspect, along with just the project itself. Like, this is significant. There's 3 towers. There's a 5-story rental building proposed. It's a large site. There are 2 sites actually, and so we're in the process of that review. Our expectation is that report probably wouldn't be coming forward to very late this year, or maybe early in the new year, once we have that all together. In the meantime, we are scheduled to be coming to council very shortly on the updated affordable housing strategy, proposed strategy. Right now, what we have on the books under the existing affordable housing strategy that dates back to 2007, there really aren't policies around rental replacement. What was in there, or what was developed around that time, focused more at the mobile home park, the Windsor Gate project, and so there's specific relocation and assistance policies that were put in place at that time. And when that project went through, there was one or two council members sitting at the table will recall this. There were provincial regulations that property owners and developers of mobile home parks need to follow to meet provincial responsibilities. The city looked at that at the time, and we checked what other municipalities do in that regard, and we came up with a policy. Council adopted policy of the day that sort of laid over the provincial regulations and sort of expand on what the province called for. And so that's, in the end, what the package that was put together in that case. Here I would, I'm just speculating a bit, but I imagine it would be a somewhat similar approach. That would be my recommendation to council. As the draft housing affordability strategy comes together, and this is one of the components of that, how do you deal with rental housing, and with that, with the assistance as well. So it would be a matter of coming forward with some ideas for council consideration, that once councils consider that, debated it, it would find its way into a policy that then would be part and parcel with the strategy, if you will.
Okay, thank you. Now, so Blue Sky, even operating in this uncertain policy terrain, has been working on rental replacement and relocation and things like that on their own. Blue Sky has decided to build part of its application proposal would be to have a rental tower and also to have various policies in place. Now they sent us something on dated September 11th, which was their a copy of their information notice to all rental tenants about some of the things that they would plan to do should their project go forward. Do you know if that proposal that they have sort of meets the spirit of what the city is looking at generally in this area?
Through the chair again, Councillor O'Neill, I should mention we do have some reference. It's not just a policy void, if you will. There is the transit-oriented development strategy that you'll recall had some effort, some direction around that. So there's some direction there for prospective developers of these properties. We've been, as I said, in the process of reviewing the material that they've submitted. We've been coming back with comments, suggestions to them. I think we're still circling around at this point on that.
Still circling around. Okay. All right, thank you. I won't press you for any more details. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Lou. Yeah, thank you. You know, funny darn thing, but you know what? We here in the city seem like we don't care about people that are rentals. There's council members that feel that rentals people are just somebody that's the lowest of the low. You know, which is sad. I mean, one council member, it's not on record, said, it's not up to me to see that there's rentals in our city. A politician, you listen to the tape, you know. Affordable housing policy, why haven't we got it in place? I'll tell you why. Councilor Nicholson has been pushing for about 3 years now the housing policy. Nobody was moving on it. Affordable housing policy, and they're not moving about it. You know when they're going to move? When the election is over. And goodbye, rentals. Sorry, I have to tell you, you're leaving the city. Because you know why? We're now into high density for these people that want to build, and we're into high density bonuses for the city. So then the rentals are gone by the wayside. They're nowhere to be found. So I ask maybe this fall, find out who stands for what in these council chambers, and elect those people. It's in November 15th. Elect people that feel that you have a right to stay in this city and have a rental. And that's very simple. And I'll tell you what they'll say to you. Oh yeah, I'm with you 100%. The day after the election, bang, gone. And I'll tell you something, it's sad. It's sad to sit here and listen to the crap that's going around this table and how everybody's covering their back right now. And it's sickening, really sickening. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks for coming, Mr. Corea, and telling us your story. We haven't received any information yet about the sort of the demographic breakdown of the tenants in those two developments. Can you give us an idea of what you perceive the demographic breakdown, ethnicity, immigrant, non-immigrant, age?
It'll be very difficult. I'm sorry. It'll be very difficult for me to give that type of a breakdown. I think there might be an average of 50 to 60 families that are affected, but don't quote me on that figure. In terms of ethnicity, it is wide and varied. What I do know is that I think it might be 30% of the families that have been there for under 5 years, that is, and maybe a bit more, between 30 and 40% might be there over 5 to 10 years, and the remainder will be over 10 years. So there are a lot of people who have been invested in that property for a very long time. And many of those families, like I said, might be families that have recently come to the country as well, and they have jobs at the Walmart. They have jobs in very close proximity, so they are very Coquitlam centered. So in order to move them either out of that area because they can't afford to get something that is adequate for them because of family size and whatnot, it's not only the loss of a rental that you're losing. You know, you're losing an entire income of a family, their spending and so forth, and so multiply that numerous times. And it's a sad loss to the city, because the city is really a point at which people come to from other countries, you know, and brings the diversity that is Coquitlam and by extension Canada. When I go to various events and I see, you know, how many different people there are here, it really makes me feel good. Because I interact with many of them through my job. I've been in media for a long time. I used to be at CKNW. And now that I'm really a local boy here at the Tri-Cities, I see it more every day when I go out. And so we should try to retain that as much as possible, because it is a definite attraction and a positive for the city.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I just saw the information that Blue Sky sent to the residents, and I just want to thank Blue Sky for increasing the amount that they're offering the residents. I think that's great that they've heard some of the concerns, and they're trying to meet maybe partway in the middle and stuff, but I just want to congratulate Blue Sky for trying to improve the situation for everybody. It's great.
Okay, anybody else? Well, I want to thank you for coming. That's not everyone's going to have the courage to do this. Not everyone's going to be able to step up and say what you said and plead for the people there. I know that there's one other person in the room that's a very, 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 very long-term resident in that neighborhood, and I think I dropped a couple of areas just to make it shorter. But the people we met at for example, the end of summer parks party, that's this neighborhood, and it's a pretty exciting United Nations. The world has come to that neighborhood, and we've got some work to do. So thank you very much, and I echo Councillor Wilson's comments about we look to the private sector as well. We look to those to step forward with a responsible approach to this, and we thank you for coming forward to make this case.
Okay, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Indeed. You won't say that when you get to know him.
Oh, yes, I will. I can tell.
Now he's a good guy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's it for the published agenda. Now the other agenda.
Our first other business item relates to temporary truck routes, and that was raised by Councillor Zavala.
Well, last week, the majority of this council was surprised to find out that the movement of construction materials in our growing city, which is a very complex and challenging issue because we spent hours and hours talking about it, and it's something that affects the entire city. we were surprised to find out that it was being used on the doorstep as an election ploy to pit street against street and create division in the community, as well as among this council. In addition, I was personally appalled to find out that the mayor was involved in the distribution of these divisive and inflammatory materials.
That's not true.
You admitted it on the day. This council democratically voted in favor of a trial period to try to find a solution to a very challenging issue. And as a result, residents of our community have been subjected to half-truths and misleading information about its permanency and actually the reason behind the trial. Based on that reality, the useful life of this trial period has expired. And since it has always been possible to terminate the trial period at any time, something that Councillor Wilson explicitly stated to all of us when this came forward in July, I ask this council to direct the engineer to do just that today and terminate the trial. And at the same time, realize that a solution to the Centennial School Site Challenge and potentially the dry floor sports facility, which is right beside it, is needed, and both are important projects that benefit our wider community.
I move that the trial be ended.
No, there's no reason for a motion. It's expired, just or September 15th, like Councilor Wilson said. So there's no reason to
It goes to the
terminate.
end. I think it goes to the end of September.
How about if we,
I think it goes to the end of September.
No, it was
How about
September 15th.
well, how about if we do this? How about if we go through the chair? There was a motion on the floor. The motion doesn't have any force here because this is council and committee anyway. There's a motion on the floor. Council and committee would then be considering it and then voting on it. It would then be on the agenda for a future council meeting, unless there's a motion at council to waive procedure that would require it, because there's nothing on tonight's agenda that I can think of that would connect with this item. So, Ms. Mahor.
Just one item is the 30th of September is when the trial would terminate.
Okay, there's no seconder for the motion? No. Councillor Wilson?
Well, I don't think we need a motion. It was just based on direction. We were providing direction to the engineer to end the trial period. In the motion that I moved initially, it didn't require a motion to end it. It just said it could be ended at any time. And so we're just giving direction, I think, to Joseph that, we think it should be tainted. And we've heard loud and clear from the residents about their concerns about safety and that sort of thing along the route. And it's an awful situation because nobody wants trucks on their streets. Nobody wants trucks in anywhere in the city. But we need to be able to move the goods around our community in an efficient way, especially with all the Evergreen Line construction and the other construction we've had. So we've heard loud and clear, and you might wonder why we've heard loud and clear when we didn't hear anything for the first 6 weeks of it. But I think a lot of it is just because of what's been happening in the last week or 2 weeks. And the public feedback that we were hoping to get has been tainted. So I support, giving direction to Joseph to end the trial and look forward to our consultation forum with the stakeholders so that we can have a non-political, objective, rational discussion about the issue. But if it's okay with council, I'd like to ask our mayor a few questions first. Is that okay about this issue? No?
Okay with me. It's an odd procedure, but go ahead.
Well, because I wasn't the one that started it.
Neither
so
was I.
my question for you is, if you were so opposed to having trucks going up and down the north side of Mariner, why did you tell Councillor Nicholson and I in a meeting with you before this was proposed, when I came to you for some advice and some guidance on how we could potentially come up with a compromise for this, why did you tell us at that trial that this would be something you could support?
I didn't say I could support it. You asked me the procedure for putting a motion forward, and I gave you the procedure. I never give an opinion about my own personal opinion. I don't think it's appropriate that the chair would try and dissuade you from doing something when you're asking me a procedural question. And you asked me a procedural question. I have said for the last year, since Mr. Allard first came in October and said he got some tickets going up a non-truck route with trucks, that he wasn't allowed up. He got tickets. At that point, I said, that's not a truck route. It's not a safe route. I've always been against that. And I don't know I don't know how my position could be misconstrued on this. I've always been against that as a truck route. We watched in 1998 a truck lose control on the way down there, smash into a steamroller that was paving the road, a wind van steamroller, almost killed people. People were hospitalized from that. We watched a truck in 2005 careen down that hill and into someone's family room. No one was injured on that one except perhaps the truck driver. I'm not certain. I don't remember. But this is not a safe truck route.
So in light of that, last week you told us that you proposed to Allard Contracting and Coquitlam Concrete that only they be allowed to drive their trucks up and down the north side of Mariner. So my question to you is...
No, I didn't.
What you told us last week was you even proposed to them that the lines be blurred of our grid system so that their project would fall into the category where they could go up and down the north side of Mariner.
I said one of the options we have, for example, Allard came to us several times and used up lots and lots of time in committee discussing the possibility of getting to Centennial.
Okay, just hold on. I didn't ask you that question. My question is, why did you only tell us about that last week rather than in July when
actually,
you were trying to figure this out?
I mentioned that, I believe, at a committee meeting in May, or it might have been March. Why don't we just blur the lines?
Get us the tape.
Well, the tape's on the internet. Just look it
so,
up.
So when we were trying to figure out this issue in July, why didn't you bring it up then?
Because he rejected it. Mr. Allard said, well, that's not...
He's not the one that makes policy in our city.
Well, he's the one that was pitching this. I'll tell you, he does make policy in large ways, but he was pitching it to council, and I had said to him, why don't we just give you the 200 meters? If all of the contractors, if everybody gets to go the shortest route from a truck route, plus or minus 200 meters. That means Thrifty Foods could go the shortest distance, plus or minus 200 meters. And it would allow them a little bit more flexibility. It would perhaps save some greenhouse gases. Perhaps it would be a solution that wouldn't enormously add to the truck route challenges by designating something a truck route that wasn't safe for trucks. So I said, well, how about a 200, and I actually said 200 meters, because he had said it's only 30 meters difference, but I said, well, it's probably not 30. That might be an exaggeration, so let's make it 200 meters. 200 meters of flexibility. And he said, well, that's not going to help me at all, because then I won't be able to get to Bresley, or whichever one he was trying to get to at Coquitlam. It became apparent to us, I think all of us, that it wasn't just Centennial High School that he was pitching. It must have been apparent to you, because your motion wasn't Como Lake up to Poirier. It was Como Lake all the way to Clark, which means that he didn't want just a solution for Centennial. He wanted a solution for Bresley, and I was opposed to that as well. So if the suggestion that comes tonight, we still need a solution for Centennial, the solution probably is a 200-meter flexibility. That would allow that the gravel operators could take trucks to Centennial via Mariner. I would still not particularly I don't think I'd support that either, but at least that would allow us, if council wanted to do something to get trucks get trucks up Mariner to Centennial, then that would allow you to do it without permitting concrete trucks to go down Mariner full, without permitting dump trucks to go down Mariner full. Yesterday I watched a semi-trailer going down Mariner, and Mariner's not supposed to be a truck route. But the law of unintended consequences is if you declare something a truck route, trucks are going to use it.
Yes. And the intent of the motion was not to make it a free flow.
I know,
so you had suggested we blur the lines, meaning that in your opinion, some truck traffic on that route is okay.
No,
this is going to be.
In my opinion, if council's going to vote to allow trucks to Centennial via Mariner, I'd rather they do it via a 200-meter flexibility than by designating Mariner a truck route. Because if you designated a truck route, then you've got trucks going down full. And the risks that I find unacceptable, period, are way more unacceptable if you allow trucks to go down Mariner full.
I hear you.
So that was it. I still don't support the idea of using Mariner, but if council does want to use Mariner, please do it through flexibility on the distance rather than by designating it a truck route.
So you don't necessarily want to support it now, but back in the spring you were suggesting that.
I was suggesting it as a means of compromise because it was apparent that some members of council wanted every arterial to be a truck route, and that would be bizarre. Well, one member of council.
Okay, we got it.
Got it. So at that point, all I wanted to do, as I typically find, we can find a compromise that might be acceptable to the majority that won't hurt that many people.
Okay. So I hear that, and I accept what you're saying. You talk about safety and how unsafe the trial is. Why did you not reach out to any of us who voted for that motion in July to ask us to reconsider our vote? At any time in the last 2 months, you could have reached out to us. You could have asked, hey, we might have made a mistake. We're hearing lots of negative feedback. Why don't you reconsider your vote?
I'm sorry.
Well,
At 1 in the morning, someone produces a motion, and it wasn't the fault of that mover that it was at 1 in the morning.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, really. I mean, we're getting into your personal motives and everything like this. This is not proper.
Excuse me. Personal.
I don't think this is
I will answer the question. I will answer the question,
Really
but this is going to be the last one because I'll
Yeah,
tell you.
what were you thinking? Why didn't you?
At 1 in the morning,
he's got a right to
at
ask
1
it.
in the morning, a motion gets moved and passed. It wasn't on the agenda, and I can only think that that's why 2 weeks later, it was probably 3 weeks later, we hadn't heard a peep. And I remember thinking, we haven't heard a peep. Maybe there aren't that many trucks going up. I think someone even asked Ballard how many trucks have gone up in the last 5 weeks at some point, and he said 22, which means one every day and a half. Okay, so the trucking industry didn't really find out about it because it was a strange motion producing a strange trial. And by your own admission, you've said the results are tainted because the public found out about it, or because the public got warned about it, or the public was told that we have this trial now. We have this trial.
The public was whipped up into a frenzy.
Okay, whatever.
By your Facebook post, by what people have been disseminating on the
My
doorsteps.
Facebook post was entirely accurate, and it reflected
completely.
Okay, where we lost it. Okay.
No, but
I won't
okay,
be. I won't. Okay.
But can I? If I have
the point of order is sustained.
No, but if I have the privilege of counsel, I can ask questions. Can't I?
Well, you can, but the point of order has been sustained. The chair, we don't have a procedure that allows you to cross-examine.
The problem is,
I realize that it's election season, but this is silly.
Then you should. Okay, I'm not the one that started this.
I didn't. It was started last week.
No, it started long before last week.
But go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, you just have to have my point of order.
Yes, I did.
Point of order,
But this is a
Council
highly
Wilson-
regular.
the council wants it done, but we can vote whether point of order is allowed or not. And I'm against point of order. He wants to continue.
Well,
We're
that's
being
not what our
forced
procedure
to
does.
change. We're being forced to change a policy
We aren't forced to change it.
because
I hope we do.
because of what's been going on. Because the feedback from the public has been tainted.
Mr. Mayor, please.
He does have the floor. He does have the floor.
What?
But I said I won't be answering any more questions. He can ask questions, but he has the floor.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
Well, what I was going to ask, and if you decide you don't want to answer it, that's fine. But my question was, why didn't you ask any of us to change our vote? We can change it at any time, so why didn't you ask? My question was, last week, why did you
Okay,
not?
I will answer. You do know that between the last meeting of the summer and the first meeting, there's no opportunity to do this. And so you're saying, why didn't I approach you to change your vote for the meetings that we didn't have? Because we didn't have them.
Anytime in that August break, you could have called me up and said, hey, we got to talk
But
about
anyway,
this.
go
There's a
ahead.
problem. And at last week's meeting, we could have, or more importantly, you could have, or Brent or Terry
I made a very.
could have made a motion.
I made it very public that I was against this.
You
Yes.
could have made a motion.
I should have done it in the
to
back room.
end it,
Maybe I don't know.
Right?
I don't make motions.
I did nothing in the back room. Don't
I
be suggesting
I didn't say
anything
that.
about
I said I should have done it.
Oh, I should have
Because
done it in the back room.
No, you just said that I'm supposed to approach you quietly and convince you to. No, I said publicly, very publicly. I didn't think. I said it publicly at various council meetings all the way through the spring.
We got it. At that point,
No, so I'm allowed to answer until you think I'm making a different point.
Okay, go on. That's fine. If you're going to.
I made it very public at every council meeting, and I made it to council. And at the last meeting of the year, a motion gets moved, it gets passed, I vote against it. At this point, there's no more council meetings that we can reverse this at until September. So there's not much point me phoning you in August 1st and saying, look, we got to change this, because we can't, we don't have any more council meetings. So I guess that's my thinking. Actually,
Okay, that's fine.
Go ahead.
So why last week didn't you make a motion tender?
I don't make motions.
Why didn't you get Brent or Terry to make a motion tender?
I don't order Brent or Terry to do anything. They could have made a motion. I don't get to make motions. It's in a procedure.
Can.
The mayor doesn't make motions. I haven't made a motion in the 6 years I've been mayor.
That's semantics, right?
It's not semantics. It's the rules.
You could have talked to Terry and Brent. And I'm talking to Terry and Brent as well. I wish Brent was
Well,
here.
then,
But you know, if this is all about public safety, you had an opportunity to do something about it, and none of you did. This is what I'm trying to say. So now we're at the point
I raised it
where
repeatedly and got criticized for raising
Raising it isn't effective, but passing a motion.
I don't get to move. You're asking the only person on council who can't move a motion why he didn't move a motion.
I got that. Okay. You talk about how nobody knew anything about this. At any time, you could have asked our communications department to run an ad in the paper. You could have asked our communications department to sign up about the truck routes.
I've been criticized for not asking.
There's only one speaker. Let's not have 20.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can I just? Okay, we've got an issue here because I've been criticized before when I didn't ask. Although some people suggested that I was in touch with communications and get them to do something. So I could never be in touch with communications and ask them to do something. That's not what I do. That's not the role of mayor. I've been told repeatedly.
Okay, listen to me. If it was so important, you could have sent an email to all of us and you could have said, hey, do you mind if I ask communications to post the sign up to run an ad saying we're doing this trial period, right? At no time did any of the people who were so concerned about people's safety think of doing that?
Actually, and I already explained it, and this is the last answer, sorry. I was surprised 2 weeks later when I realized, or 3 weeks later, and I don't think anything got... So I went back into the newspapers and realized, well, it never got covered. It wasn't in the newspaper, or at least I didn't see it. I couldn't find it in the newspaper. Is it possible, then, that a motion that isn't on the agenda and happens after the reporters leave doesn't get reported because just the accident of when it happened? And so, yeah, I suppose I could have gone to the communications and asked them, please send out a memo and let's try and get council to approve this. By your own admission, you've said that would have perhaps tainted the results of this because the public would have known.
Then I want the public to know, but what I want is an objective set of information sent to them.
Well, then why didn't you send it?
I never thought of it.
Okay.
Right? Because to me it wasn't as much of a safety issue. But for you and Brent and Terry, it's all about safety. And not one of you tried to notify the public in an objective way.
Okay, we're done now.
You tried.
We're done.
Okay, this is the problem though. We have to end this now because of all this stuff that went on.
Well, then let's end it now. I have said publicly, each member of council had different reasons for voting for what was a trial. It was called a trial.
Voting against it.
So some people voted against it for different reasons. Some people voted for it for different reasons. I'm not attributing anything to the reasons that people voted for or against. All I'm saying is I think it's wrong to even try truck routes on there, given that all we're hoping for is that nothing bad happens. And we know that bad things happen accidentally and randomly. They don't happen in a 6-week or 8-week trial. Bad things can happen in 8.5 weeks. So I just think a trial will only get, the only results a trial will get us is either some tragedy happens or some tragedy doesn't happen, in which case we can make a decision with no facts except the luck of the draw. So I was against the trial. But for whatever reason, lots of different reasons, and I know May, for example, when we get to the south end of Johnson, she thought, well, how do we get them around the Pine Tree thing? And I think it's a valid concern. We've got to find a solution for getting the trucks around Pine Tree. There were other reasons around the table. So, I'm not blaming anybody. All I'm saying is, I think it was a mistake, and that's why I voted against it. I think now some other members of council think, okay, this didn't, for whatever reason, so I'm going to go to the next.
Well, I'll just finish what I was going to say.
Okay, go ahead.
So you had lots of opportunities to do something. All of the people who were against it had opportunities to do something. And I'll suggest that while you say you're completely concerned about safety, it appears that that's not really the case. I mean, I suggest that your actions and inactions since the end of July indicate that this is more.
I'm disgusted by
I'm in the
this.
middle of. I'm at the floor.
I'm offended. But go ahead. I guess go ahead. I didn't attribute to any motions, any reasons to your motion.
The three of you could have done things and you chose not, right? At any time you could have asked us to change our vote. At any time you could have gotten communications. Last week you could have made a motion when we were discussing it, and you did none of those things at any time. So that's why it appears to us that it was all about politics.
So it's
our
fault.
The flyers that have been handing around,
Wow.
the petition that's inflammatory and misleading.
Does that take something?
This is all about politics.
I have nothing to do with the
That takes the
petition. I actually wrote the person that drafted the petition, and I asked her to correct some things because they were wrong. The petition was wrong. Actually, she ended up correcting it.
So
No.
it's,
Anything else?
that's why we
Councillor Reid.
are encouraging our engineer to end the trial.
Councillor Reid,
Mine? Okay,
you're next.
this is a dog's breakfast. As I wrote in an email to one person, or several people, I sort of sent the same email out. We are in this community in a bit of what shall I call a traffic crisis. We have the biggest thing to go through Coquitlam happening, the SkyTrain. We have businesses that are affected, and all along North Road, we had a gentleman there last week. We have traffic that's affected there. We have crosswalks that are affected there. We have roads that are closed off that are affected there. Our gravel operators happen to be on the very north end of our city, not the very north, but close to the end of the city, and they have to get to the middle of the city. So, of course, in the middle of all this happening, we have to have a new crosswalk put in across our major road, Barnett Highway, which takes thousands of people a day going into Coquitlam Center. There's kids, there's moms, there's pops, there's grandmas, there's everybody. They've taken the road, Evergreen Crew, and they've made, it's actually kind of fun. It's kind of an experience. I don't have to go to Playland this year because you've got these little tiny lanes all lined up with cones, and you go in and out and up and down, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what do we need gravel trucks here for? It made no sense whatsoever. Mr. Allard came in, and this is where it's all getting a little confused. He came in because he saw we were passing a new bylaw, and his industry had not been consulted. That was what he was mad about. And he came back and forward and back and forth. And of course he said, well, I'd like to go this street or this street or this street. And yes, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, Como Lake was a truck route. Austin was a truck route, and a huge arterial was a truck route. It didn't make too much sense to me to be going up Mariner until I found out that when the south side of Mariner is steep and curvy, and the north side of Mariner is steep and curvy, but the north side is much longer and there is some straightaways. Any road we build, we have speeding problems on. Any road we build, we can have an accident on. I mean, accidents can happen anywhere in your driveway, you know. The old story, I pulled into my driveway and hit a tree I didn't have. Well, that can happen anywhere. So I think this whole safety thing, while incredibly important, is sort of a bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing. What's really upset me is the smartest thing to do was to get the gravel trucks away from where they'd be meeting a ton of people, which was off Pine Tree. We did a trial run to see if we could get up, and of course in the middle of SkyTrain, Centennial School decided to be replaced, another knock for us. The quickest way, if they had been, and I think it was Councillor Wilson that wrote somewhere, I read it in the paper, that if the school was a block further northwest or something, we would have been using Mariner anyhow because it would have been a truck route. Then all these folks would have been yelling for nothing. What's upset me about this whole thing is, in very good faith, it made perfect sense to me to move the gravel trucks over to Johnson to get them away from all the traffic and the little tots that are running around Coquitlam Center. It made much more sense to go to get them up Mariner, the quickest, fastest route to Centennial, get the job done and get this over with. Just get it over with. And now this is blown into something because one candidate decided to take it upon themselves to make this a big election issue, and of course she split where the vote was. I think that was wrong. I hate seeing stuff like this happen. I mean, I've been around here for 23 years, and this just isn't progressive. It isn't healthy. It isn't good for anyone. We're supposed to be leading this community, and leading, some of us felt that to do a trial period was a good idea. Now we've got a whole bunch of people who are out there and they're writing in because they've got incorrect information and they want everything stopped. And so if you want to stop it, fine, because the trial period is now totally useless. We will learn nothing because the few people who are really genuine who would have phoned in and given us information, it's all been tainted now by brochures and all this stuff. And I just think that's so wrong. I just hate to see us resulting to stuff like this to get our own ways. I just think it's wrong. And if I were a parent, I'd ground everybody. But I can't ground y'all. So the point is that I think if you're going to cancel it, let's cancel this and get it over with. But I want the general public to know that there were lots of good reasons for doing this. And everything we have done now has been tainted, and it's done, it's over, and whatever pluses we got on the other end, because there were some pluses, they're gone as well. So now it can all go back so that they go all the way around Lougheed and up the other side of Mariner, of course, which would never have an accident, but which could at any given moment, all the way down Austin, all the way up by the Centennial School, and do that job. And I have no idea where all the trucks are going that have to go to Coquitlam, which is a huge area, but they sure as heck can't go up Port Moody Hill. And no one has yet answered me where all the excavation trucks are going and how they're getting in and out, and who's going to pay me tolls for excavation trucks, which I've asked at 3 different meetings, because I want money because they're going over my roads with huge loads of excavation materials, and I still haven't heard back from this. But our first foray into this is now a totally lost cause, not because people win or lose. Basically here, folks, we're all losers. I'm done.
Terry?
Yeah, thanks very much, and good comments made. It's really regrettable this has become so emotional. Now, you know, the first part of my journalistic career, I was quite content to sit back and record notes. Basically, he said this, she said that, put it in the newspaper, and let the readers make up their mind based on what people said. And then I really got cynical about the news then, because the news started being about whoever said the most outrageous thing, or whoever acted the most outlandishly, whoever made the most outlandish charge. So a reporter who doesn't try to kind of get through that, try to find out what's really going on, is really not doing the job. But that's actually how we were trained in journalism school. To sort of, be impartial, just report. But to get to the nub of the issues, you really have to start saying, well, does that make sense? Is that right? Is that wrong? Is that factual? Is that not factual? And so the number one thing that all of this debate hinges on is the allegation that there was a deliberate or maybe some sort of attempt to stir this thing up and make political gains on it. But I have not seen a shred of evidence to support that. And as a matter of fact, one of the people who was so offended and shocked by what's going on said that the pamphlet in question that was circulated was completely accurate, but was misleading. Now, it's a paraphrase. Without specifying which ways, it was misleading. It's been often said around this table that the process, this trial period, has been tainted. Well, if that pamphlet is entirely accurate, and I've looked at it, and it's accurate. It squeezes things into one little thing and makes an issue out of it. If it's entirely accurate, then we're in a position where the process has been tainted by the truth. Now, how can that be? How can something be tainted by the truth? If this is truthful and accurate about what council did in the last meeting of July, by a 6-3 vote, allowed this truck exemption to happen on a temporary basis, and if that's truthful, then how could the truth taint? This is what I just really don't understand, and I'm disappointed that people think that a process, a trial period in which nobody knows anything about what's going on, or the public doesn't know about a trial, would somehow be it. I would say that if anything were to taint the process, it would be the cone of silence that was over the procedure, over this trial period. That would have tainted it. Like, shouldn't people have the right to know? You know, I'm quoting my journalism, sort of citing my journalism background again. I'll answer that and say, yes, people should have the right to know what's going on. And in a matter of setting the record straight here, from the time I've been on council, I've been very uncomfortable about moving forward with stuff where I don't have all the information, don't have staff reports. One of the very first things that I got really upset about was something that happened when we were trying to rush through something without I thought due consideration, and that was my point for not going along with this trial period. Because I certainly understood the logic behind the trial. You know, I understood what people were saying, and I understood Mr. Allard's point of view as well. But you know, I didn't want to make a decision when we weren't getting the engineer involved was not saying yes, this is something that's valid and it won't cause traffic disruptions in a new sector. It won't damage the roads, and it won't be a safety problem, and all this sort of stuff. It wasn't just safety. I mean, that was something that the mayor might have talked about, and Councillor Asmussen. I'm not going to speak for them. I haven't looked the record up, but I certainly know what my feeling was. And my feeling was, I'm just not comfortable going here. And so, you know, I know we got a lot of big hills in this community, and we had truck routes that were set out in the past, and I wasn't persuaded that it was crucial enough to change my for council to preemptively, without a proper background, make a decision to sort of even for a trial period to override those existing routes, and we're in an area as contentious as the Mariner. So mine was just a matter of process. It wasn't a matter of trying to say this was going to be leading to death and destruction or anything like that. So there's a point I have, and I resent. This is a personal comment. I resent the fact that it's somehow my responsibility to talk my council colleagues out of a decision that they made simply because they have been receiving a lot of negative blowback on it. And I'm sitting here going, I'm on the side of the angels on this one. Thank goodness I voted the way I voted. And it was no certain thing. So I'm sitting back and seeing all these emails and letters and all this stuff coming in, and I'm going, wow, these guys, they've got to make their bed and they've got to sleep in it. And certainly, if they see the need to change this, please go ahead and change it. Like I said, when Councillor Zerillo came up with that report, oh, good. Well, it looks like she's ready to change her mind now. I didn't think any of you guys would change your mind because, you hadn't made any motions to change your mind. So it's fine, but it sounds like Councillor Zerillo wants to stand it. So I thought, okay, good, I'll move a motion. And no seconder. So I don't really get that. So it's confusing me on this thing here. So, and the fact that there's so much angst about this and so much, we didn't start this fire, folks. I didn't start, the mayor didn't start it, Councillor Adamson didn't start this fire. If the fire was started, the fuel was put there by council's decision. Maybe somebody lit a match to that fuel. But we didn't put that fuel there. We didn't start this fire. I'm sitting back and going, holy mackerel, this is blown up in a really big way. So, there's a quote from Macbeth. The lady doth protest too much, methinks it ends. Now, what does that mean? Well, that's kind of something about human nature. And you find it with somebody who's maybe trying to explain away a decision. They're protesting, know this, know that, know that. And really, all they got to do is admit, I guess I shouldn't have made that decision in the first place or made that action in the first place. Instead of accusing this and having that innuendo that and insulting language there, if you still think you made the good decision, stick to it. That's fine. I wasn't happy with the decision to begin with. It was more a process thing for me, and I'm still in that position right now. And I told you I had a conversation with Mr. Allard after this happened to let him know that I voted against what I thought he really, really wanted, because I didn't want him to find out secondhand or something. And I told him I voted against it because I didn't think the process was right. And he said, I don't blame you. I would have waited till after the big after the thing at the end of the month where there's going to be some forum or some discussion with truckers and stuff like that. I said, oh, good, okay, good. I don't like being shouted at by Mr. Allard any more than anybody else does, but we all have to live with our decisions, and I thought I'd face up to mine with Mr. Allard. I've known him a lot, seen him in the community a lot, and he's all of a sudden saying, I don't blame you, Terry. Way to go. Okay, well, fine then. So anyway, those are the points that I want to make. The fact that could have easily, council here could have easily just ignored what was going on in terms of how this all started and dealt with actually the issue. Whether or not, who was starting this out in the community, whether it's political or not, she's not here to defend herself, and actually just dealt with the issue. Did we make the right decision or not? I haven't really been hearing a lot of that from people who've been talking most emotionally about this thing. Did you make the right decision or not? If you made the right decision, stick to it by all means. In the face of this massive public outcry, stick to it if you think you made the right. Right.
What are you talking about? Massive outcry.
Stick to it, and if you think you've made the wrong decision, second my motion, and let's end this right now. That's the way I see this. Okay, that's the way I see it. I think it's simple that way. Thanks very much.
Okay, Neil.
Thank you, Worship.
I need some more water. Hold that thought.
Councillor O'Neill's attempted to make a motion. What I heard from Councillor Zerillo and I think from Councillor Wilson, although it got a little hard to follow sometimes, back and forth, was the suggestion that really what we need to do, this is counseling committee, it's not council. If we make a motion, we have a whole lot of process to go through. It's not uncommon for us to give direction to staff on matters, and I guess that we have no rules around direction to staff. It seems to me, though, that we are probably, there's one thing we can probably all agree on, is that we don't need to continue the trial. We know what we've heard back, and direction to staff to end the trial is what began this fairly lengthy conversation and perhaps can bring it to an end.
if I could clarify then, there was actually on the July 28th, I remember it was Councillor O'Neill that said, the engineer is predisposed against this. He's going to look for any reason to end this. And the engineer said, no, I'm waiting for direction from staff, from council, if you want something other than what I recommended. And council made that direction. And I fully expect that engineering would not ignore a council and committee motion that was passed.
Well, in that case, I'll second Councillor O'Neill's motion.
Informing him of council's position. Because we actually don't get to set truck routes. We get to ask the engineer to, and the engineer would normally follow our instructions because he does kind of work for us a little bit. We work for the city and the residents, and he works at our request. And so I think that a motion like Councillor O'Neill's, seconded by Councillor Nicholson, motions on the floor, I suspect they would. I would expect that would end up becoming direction to staff. I've still got Craig Hodge.
Thank you.
Craig Hodge, and then on the motion.
Thank you. All right. There's a lot of information here. I think it's correct. And in some cases, it's not always been, I think, presented in its fullest, and probably not maybe in the best form that it should have been presented. And I think for that, I think we've all done a bad job of how this has been communicated. And for that, I apologize. I think we could have done a much better job of getting this out in a better way. There's some facts here. Centennial Secondary School is one of the sites that needs concrete. It's in a residential area, and it's on the top of a very big hill, no matter which way you go up there. There's been a discussion which is the best way to get up there, and I think that's sort of what may have begun this dialogue, and I think through subsequent discussions it's gone in other directions. But I agree that at this point I think we've got the information we need. Continuing this trial is only going to continue the public anxiety that's out there. And I think I certainly have heard enough from our residents, and I'm comfortable saying, okay, that's it. The residents have spoken. We've heard what they have to say, and I'm quite happy to just say today, that's it. Let's end the trial. I still want to have the discussion with the truckers and other interested parties that was going to happen at the end of this month. And I think this will now, what we've learned through this last couple of weeks, will be helpful as we move into that discussion. We can talk about this. We know, we've heard. Mr. Allard made some very compelling arguments when he was here. And the one thing that was missing from those 3 meetings here was any input from residents in this community. And that was one of the things that in my mind was lacking, was hearing from the residents, the people who live in those neighborhoods, the people who know best what they want, what trucks, what vehicles they want on their streets. The trial, it took place in the summertime, not in the worst of conditions, but at least it created an awareness, and we had a discussion. Councillor O'Neill made some good points. He said, well, was the information that was presented during this truthful? As a journalist as well, I can look at this and sort of say, I have covered in my career many events where I've seen 2 completely different interpretations from the same story. And it just depends how a particular journalist decides to report it. So, was that information factual? It's not the way I would have presented it, but technically there was probably facts in there. But I also think that there were facts in there.
Probably facts. Okay.
There were probably facts in there. Okay. But it's how it's written and how it's presented. And that's why certain people will read certain newspapers religiously, and others choose to read a different newspaper, even though they're reading about the same event. So I think there was some anxiety that was created. This whole thing about truck routes was also a learning experience for me. And one of the things that I discovered on this is that these decisions are quite often made outside of community consultation. It's not like a public hearing. There's no ads in the paper that's placed. There's no zoning. There's no signs that go up. Okay? And we make decisions based on the information that we have. And my decision was, let's have a trial. Let's let the residents speak up before we make any permanent decisions. And the residents have certainly spoken up, and I'm quite comfortable saying at this point, okay, that's enough of the discussion on it. Now let's move into finding solutions for this. We are still going to have to find the best possible way to get trucks into those sites. and clearly the residents in this area don't think this is the best route to go. So I'm going to support the motion. I'm thinking at this point, let's end the anxiety that's being created. Let's let the residents know we've heard them, and now we've got to come up with a different route, and we have to travel a different path ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Reid.
I just wanted to speak to the motion and something that Councillor O'Neill said. I will support the motion, but not because I feel I made the wrong decision. I feel I made the right decision. But the trial to me is tainted. If people are yelling at it for reasons that they probably would never have, it's garnered attention that it shouldn't have had for the wrong reasons. And one interesting thing, if the school was a block further north and west, then we'd all be saying, oh yeah, you can go up there, you can deliver your gravel, because that's what you're supposed to do. So the whole thing is rather moot at this point, and I'm so disappointed in the way this has been handled. Thank you.
Yep, and Lou.
Yeah, thank you. You know, Allard has been here 4 times to 4 different meetings, 2 hours each time. How sad that he had to be here 4 times and ask for consultation. And you, Mayor, as a leader in this community, did not take him on and say, yes, that's what we're going to do. Not once did you mention it. Matter of fact,
we've actually scheduled it. I don't think
hold it, just a second.
Well, it's scheduled.
I don't want to listen to you, Mayor.
I know you don't.
Sorry, I've got the floor.
Okay, go ahead.
Enough is enough. You've got the council split all over the bloody place. Thank God there's election come out.
Yep.
Because then you'll be gone and you're going to be fine. You know, but you know, and when I said council should make a decision, you said right on tape, you said council should not make a decision. Now, you know what? Listen to the tape. The council should not make a decision. What the hell are we elected for? If councils are going to make a decision, then get rid of the council members. And the plasticine is already in the mayor's office. So, you know, then you wouldn't have to make any decisions on anything, you know, then save a hell of a lot of money for the taxpayers. But that's what you said. But it's a sad, sad affair, Mayor, the way you handled it. It's a sad, sad affair. For a mayor, it's really sad. I'm sorry, Mayor. You know what? I was a mayor for 17 years. I would have never done anything so slimy as you did. I'm sorry. And I mean that, you know. I would have not handled it different. For instance, if there was some problem, you had a chance to bring it back within 30 days.
We didn't have any meetings during that 30
Yeah, but
days.
you had enough time to waltz this young lady up and
Here we're
down
gonna
the
do that
street
again.
to each house, and you know something?
No, actually,
There's
that's not
Shriners
what
and
happened.
Masons that phoned me. And you know what a couple of them said? When I gave him the real story, he says, I thought the mayor wasn't telling the truth. That's exactly what come out. So, you know, you could have brought it back. You could have brought it back very easy. But, you know, you've got this council split all over the place. A lot of them are being very kind to you today and don't want to say too much. But I know what's on their mind. And like Councilor Neal said, there's a lot of negatives. There's not a lot of negatives. I got very few negatives on it, except that one lady said, you were the leader, Socorro, in all this. Oh, I voted for it. What do you mean, a leader? You know, and I said, well, you know what? I got a lot of friends of mine that live up and down Mariner, and just close to Mariner and that deal, that are shrouded. What's their addresses? What's their names? What's their addresses? You know, one of your little henchmen, you know, I mean, that's going to come in and come and bother these people. You know what I mean? That's a fact, and I've got some threatening letters now, too, that maybe one of these days I'll read in an open council meeting.
Well,
you know, and I'll tell you what, if you're not at the end of it, I'll take my hat off. But you know something? What you've done here, Mayor, is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my 42 years of political career.
Thank you. Okay.
That's being slimy, sleazy, and everything else.
Bonita.
So there's just 2 things, and I want to thank Councillor Reid for her comments today, because, you know, this is the truth, is that we have trucks needing to get to projects, and today the trucks will now go along Austin. Every single truck that's going to Centennial, that we were trying to split the pressure on Austin and throughout the city, is now going on Austin. And I can tell you, I was on Austin, and they're not too happy about it either. It's a very busy road. There's been accidents on that road this year. This is a very complex issue. But the second point I wanted to make is the problem still has not been solved. We still need to come to a solution, and this whole council wanted consultation. We're working on consultation, and I just want everybody to know it's a problem that needs to be solved, and it's not going away. It's just going to some other street or some other neighborhood.
Okay. The motion.
What is the motion again?
Okay. The motion is to express our opinion to staff, I guess. Is it, or what was the motion?
Well, I have that the city engineer be directed to terminate the temporary truck route exemption, allowing trucks to travel along Guildford Way to Johnson Street and up Mariner Way to Coleman Lake Avenue. I don't know if we want to have a date associated with that.
I suspect it meant it was effective immediately, I assumed.
I would say immediately.
I'm not sure if that would be possible for
Sorry.
today.
Sorry.
So,
Sorry. What was Guildford to Johnson? I don't understand that. No,
sorry,
it was only
up Mariner Way to Coleman
up
Lake Avenue.
Mariner and Coleman Lake, which was the, well, let's use the wording that was
Along
Coleman
Mariner
Lake
Way
to
and
Clark.
Coleman Lake Avenue.
Coleman Lake from Mariner to Clark. So Mariner from Barnett to Coleman Lake, and Coleman Lake from Mariner to Clark, which was the wording of the original motion.
Well, point of information, Your Worship. Would it be, maybe it would be prudent in light of this dog's breakfast, that you then put down the trucks will now go back to the truck route, which is Lougheed, south of Mariner, and Austin.
That's not a truck route.
No,
Well, wherever it's
Austin
going.
is the shortest route.
The shortest, so in other words, the policy would revert to the shortest route, but
So
the
what's
policy
the-
now, hang on a second, the policy now is the shortest route from a truck route. The only thing we did on the 28th was we added a truck route. So now we're getting rid of the truck route.
And I just want to clarify, I think the addition was Mariner and Como Lake. Separately and earlier, there were other exemptions that this should not change that.
I don't
So
think
the
that was
addition
the
of
intent
Johnson
of
is still
anyone
okay
here.
and Guildford is still okay.
So where will the trucks go now? If someone
Sure.
can just tell me that,
Sorry,
please.
okay. The trucks it'll revert back to what it was before.
No, it's now, trucks now are allowed to go down Guildford to the corner of Johnson and Barnett.
Yep.
Where will they go, how will they get to Centennial School from there?
If we're only talking about Centennial School,
Yeah,
Ms. Moore.
that's my big concern right now.
If a truck were to travel down Johnson to the Barnett Highway, as you've asked, they would have two choices at that point to get to Centennial School. They could travel west along the Barnett and up Clark Hill,
Right up to the
accessing,
SkyTrain, yeah.
but that's the route, that's one direction to the west, or they would travel back to the east to the Lougheed and down Lougheed to United Boulevard and then up Mariner and along Austin. Or they could continue along the Lougheed actually all the way around, which is actually quite fast, and they would be able to access any other arterials that would give them then the shortest route to the system, to the school.
Okay, so by moving, now this is just, so, and please, I hope everybody out there, this is just straight female logic. So, to remove big gravel trucks from a SkyTrain construction zone, which is Coquitlam Center, but allow them to go through where they are at this moment actively working at Como Lake and Clark in an active SkyTrain thing. We're still going to send gravel trucks. Is that correct?
They don't have to go.
The question was not is that the best route, but what would be the route under the bylaw if you
we're
take
gonna
out
get
the
into
Mariner
semantics, then
Como
you've
Lake
answered my question.
section.
Thank you very much.
No, but most of them continue to use Pine Tree anyway. Okay, I've got a whole bunch of people on, this is clarification of the motion. Lou on
Okay,
clarification.
thank you. You know, to me, I think
But
you
you-
know what's happening? We got too many desktop engineers in this city. You know, that figure what on paper. On paper looks good, and my desk looks good. I think we can sell this. Well, maybe it's not more than them. But you know, the fact is, what I want today is very simple. Wipe out what we have approved, stop it immediately, We don't need the September 30th meeting. We need to have the consultation with the gravel operators, the truck, and the cement people, consultation, what Jimmy Allen asked for over and over again, and then bring us back the route that you decide on. Okay? And that will be better. I don't want this gobbledygook that we can go now this way and go that. Can you imagine the route that you're painting out? What's going to happen? Can you imagine what kind of holdup there'll be? I mean, God, it just doesn't make any sense. But you know what? A lot of things, you know what? If anything, you know what the problem with the city is? If anything is simple, it can't be right. It can't be right. There's something wrong. We've got to throw a curve at it because it's too simple. It can't work. That's the problem here in the city. You know, I'll tell you something, Peter, you need to shake it up. Pardon me, but you need to shake it up.
Okay, so on
Because
clarification
they're
of the
not
motion.
listening to you, they're not listening to anybody, and we have a plus the scene in the mayor's office. No, and so what, no leadership whatsoever, so what do you got?
Gumby.
I think he's.
Sorry, but that's
Okay,
the way
so
it
that's
is.
clarification of the motion. I hope you got that clarified. Benita, on
Yes,
clarification of the
mine
motion.
is on clarification of the motion because I'm unsure that that's the procedure that we talked about and that's the procedure that we need. It is my understanding that in this forum, and based on what we talked about on July 28th, that it's a direction to staff only, that the direction to the engineer only, that the trial is terminated. We don't have to have a long, convoluted, it's this and it's that, because we're bound to get ourselves into, like was mentioned, semantics. I don't understand why it can't just be direction to staff, as we talked about on July 28th, that it can be terminated at any time, because the engineer has the power to do it. I don't really understand why we can't do that.
That's right.
Mr. Stein.
I would prefer the motion read that something simple, without defining precise, because I think we do get trapped. Something simple that simply says the trial that was approved by council on July 28th be terminated.
I agree to that.
Okay, perfect.
Who seconded it? I can't remember.
I did.
You did, and you're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, any objections to that being the motion? I see none.
I
Bonita.
do still have
Oh,
clarification.
sorry.
What is the objection to deferral? Like, I'm not understanding the difference, because I've been told in committee that committee is not about motions, committee is about direction. So I'm just trying to understand why direction is not good enough in this
Direction
situation.
is good enough, and for me, I just want clarity of the council forum. That's all I want, and then we can operate from staff. If there's not clear, if there's a division on council, we need a motion of some sort.
Council doesn't make binding decisions here, and in fact, this wouldn't have been a binding decision anyway. We don't order him.
Put tonight around the table.
We don't order him. We, you heard Joseph. Joseph wanted a clear understanding of what council wanted. We gave him that on the 28th, and now we're giving it to him today, I think. Joseph will have the impression, and I think you'll speak for the engineering department, that council thinks it's over. The motion terminates effectively, or at least lets staff know that staff now have the support of council to terminate the trial, which is a reference to just what
Can we have maybe
clarifying.
Council Cirillo serve that motion tonight on the floor and get it over with? It's
Why
gonna
can't
be
we get it
regular
over
council.
with now?
the motion's on the floor now.
Okay.
It's about to be over with.
So the only thing that I just want to clarify is we're still moving forward with the public and the consultation that we asked for in
Yes.
May
Yes.
and in
Yes.
June and in
Yes.
July.
Absolutely.
We're still moving forward with all of that
Yes.
Absolutely.
because the issues
This
still
ends.
exist.
This ends the trial period. Done.
Yes.
We will still have the consultation.
All in favor? All opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
So, Your Worship, you didn't want to include where the trucks could be going now.
Well, it ends the trial period.
It takes away the judgment that we have in.
No, we'll wait till someone sends out another brochure.
Now, council,
See, it's a whole new neighborhood, the door knock.
Well, it sounds like someone was already knocking on doors in Austin, so Canada's democracy.
Well, I can tell you
Yes,
it
go
wasn't me.
Ms. Mark, so right now you said they could go, trucks could go down Lougheed.
No, he's allowed to. It's the same for, just because the motion is over doesn't mean the item is over.
Okay, good, thanks.
And sort of they could go up any arterial road on the south side. Sure.
The truck route, it says that they should stay on the truck route network until they get to within close, to their destination, at which point they would generally take an arterial road and then other types of roads to get to that destination. So the truck drivers have a choice of how they do that, but the intent is to not take a long and winding route through the community to get to their destinations and avoid using the truck route. Does that?
Yeah. So Mariner is one arterial route.
Correct.
What would be another arterial route?
Within
on that south slope.
On the south slope, so you have the Mariner Way, Marmont is an arterial, Blue Mountain is an arterial. Those are both designated arterials.
But not Schoolhouse.
No. Oh, well, Schoolhouse is between, Lougheed and Brunette. So the southern section of Schoolhouse is an arterial road between Brunette Avenue and the Lougheed Highway.
They can't go past Brunette.
Correct. They would tend not to go up the hill along the northern section of Decatur, which is really the extension of Schoolhouse, right? Is quite steep.
They can or they can't.
If their destination was on Decatur, if a house was under construction on Decatur, then of course they would be able to use that to reach their destination. If their destination is Centennial School, then no, they would not be using that route.
Thanks.
Okay, Bonita?
Just, sorry, while the clarification is there, so there is still the possibility that there will be trucks on Mariner going north from Barnett up to Como Lake and across Como Lake if they are working on a project where that is the closest arterial, correct? We are not eliminating trucks on Mariner or Como Lake.
That's correct.
No.
That
Yeah, they've always been there. Just never had a truck route. Okay. Next item.
Other business item 2 relates to Canada's Democracy Week, and that's raised by Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, there are actually 2 reasons I wanted to talk about this. One is that it is Canada Democracy Week, and it's something we talk about a lot around the table, about how to engage the citizens more. And so there's a democratie.ca website. I'd encourage people to look at that and to look at the events around the country, and there's events in the Lower Mainland as well that are taking place this week. And all in furtherance of more citizen engagement, getting more people registered to vote, getting more people to vote. And coincidentally, this morning started the online consultation for the city's budget. Remember we talked about that a few months ago, and so on the very day that Democracy Week takes place, we're launching a new process to get input on the budget, and I think that's a good thing. I think Democracy Week's a good thing, and I think democracy is a good thing. And you know what? Just a quick comment. Around the table today, it was kind of messy for the last hour or so, right? And there was emotions and stuff, but that's kind of the price we pay for democracy. Nobody's taking a sword out, and nobody's pulling a hammer or anything like that. We talk about these things.
Just a minute.
Yeah, that's right. And and sometimes it can't all go smoothly all the time. And if there's one top-down dictator who just wants to make the laws and have no government beneath him, it's all going to go smoothly. And if you don't like it, you're out of there. So this gets a little messy sometimes, but that's a small price to pay for democracy. And it's a good thing. So democracy is on display with all of its warts, but it's the best system we have. And encourage people to get involved.
So who wants to be first to argue with Terry?
That's it. So, thank you.
Okay. Any controversy about that one?
Not a good apple pie.
I'm afraid it was. That's all I could come up with patriotic.
I didn't get the tune. What was it?
It was God bless America.
I was making a.
How about,
watching
how
the
about the
West
theme
Wing
from
too
Les
much?
Miserables?
We could have done that one. That would have been good. Yeah, something about the revolution. Advanced voting. Sorry, Ms. Clerk.
Perfectly fine. Third other business item relates to the letter received by Mr. Bob Holt regarding the advanced voting opportunity.
The letter received from.
This was addressed to Ms. Carrie Lohr, the Chief Election Officer, who, by great good fortune, is sitting in the clerk's chair. So we've all seen the letter, and I presume that we've all read it.
And I tried to follow.
And it really is about equal opportunity for access to the polls, I think. The suggestion that one part of Coquitlam has its advanced voting opportunities on 2 consecutive Wednesdays, and another part of Coquitlam has a Friday and a Saturday. Some people can't get there on Wednesdays. We do lots of things to try to improve voter turnout, and we've, I think, done better than some of us perhaps hoped we would. But this request, so Ms. Lohr got a letter on September 5th, but I think I raised it with you probably before the August break.
Right, and I did.
And then I think there may have been some phone calls in between some people. No, a couple of people told me, well, perhaps people phoned and didn't know who to talk to. But because people told me they had phoned, but I didn't say who to talk to. They did say that they didn't get a warm reception. Thank you. I believe it wasn't you. And some of us are inclined to telephone, and whoever answers the phone, we tell them what we think. That's the end of that. I spoke to Ms. Lohr before the meeting, and who said, we're preparing a response to the letter, and we don't intend to change anything. Having just come out of a good, solid session of messy democracy, I'm a little reluctant to suggest that we once again attempt to direct staff to do something that staff doesn't think they ought to be doing. I believe Mr. Holt's case is well made. I think that his solution is one, and there may be others. Perhaps we have a Saturday poll at Pine Tree, perhaps the same day we have a poll at Corea. I would hope that we could find a way to improve the distribution of advanced voting opportunities such that all areas of the city have similar opportunities. And rather than suggesting that we give direction to staff, do you have a long list of speakers on this?
That depends how long you're going to speak. Because you're the only one.
Oh, am I the only one? Well, I'm going to keep talking until somebody else puts up their hand, because I'm hoping that some other people will agree with me, and that perhaps we may be persuasive to the Chief Elections Officer rather than instructive. Thank you.
Ms. Lohr.
So I'm happy to provide some comments on that. Typically, the advanced voting opportunities and the choice of voting locations has resided with staff. We do take into account a number of considerations when we do plan for these things, and we found that the first advanced voting opportunity at Corea is the most popular opportunity out of all 4 of them. It is the busiest, it has the highest voter turnout. We feel that there is the largest amount of foot traffic during the week in that area due to Dogwood Pavilion activities that take place during the week with the seniors. There's only one opportunity for a Saturday advance voting opportunity between when the first required advance voting opportunity is on November 5th and General Voting Day, and that's October 8th. And we do have that at Pine Tree because we try to lessen the impact on the high school by having one of the advance voting opportunities on the weekend, because the traffic tends to be a bit much with having the opportunity there during the week as it is on Friday. We also try to take advantage of the opportunity that Town Center Park tends to be quite busy on the weekend. So those were some of the reasons why we did that. We're not going to cancel the advanced voting opportunity that we have at Pine Tree and switch them all around at this point, because they've already been scheduled. We've already run it on our website. We have a number of information documents that have already been printed that have the advanced voting opportunity locations and dates. It is at the discretion of council if they want to give direction to staff to add another advanced voting opportunity. We would certainly follow that direction. Should be noted that there is an additional cost that will be associated with that to the election budget, and that it is possible we will have to fund programming out of one of the rooms up at Corea to accommodate.
Okay, and May added herself, and I just kind of, I haven't seen this, it's not in my index.
It was
Yeah.
distributed
Yeah.
to
Don't know, so that's fine. It's, I've read it now, but go ahead.
It was just, there was 2 Wednesdays, so I guess I'm with Neil. It was 2 Wednesdays, right?
Yeah, the
Why can't we do
consecutive
a
Wednesday,
and a Thursday? That's why I'm
consecutive
asking.
Wednesdays at 4 a.m.
There's no
Or a
reason why we
Monday or a
couldn't,
Saturday
and
or
certainly going forward, we can keep that in mind. It's just always, I guess we've just always gone on sort of what we have done in the past.
So you're saying it's too late to change it now, basically?
Well, we don't want to change the dates that we already have in the room bookings, but we can certainly add an additional one in that quadrant if council feels that that's going to be of benefit. I do have to say that the first advanced voting opportunity is always the most popular, which is what we hold up there, and from there on it decreases. The Saturday one is typically the least popular advanced voting opportunity.
Okay, we've got Neil, May, sorry, already, Benita and Neil.
I just wanted to take this opportunity since we have the election officer here about Meadowbrook. I was just looking this weekend, and I noticed that for the Meadowbrook neighborhood there isn't a pole on that side of Lougheed Highway. I didn't realize that Meadowbrook School was on that side of the highway. And I know not necessarily for this year, but maybe for the next one. I canvassed that pocket quite a bit during the by-election, and quite a few of them are transit dependent in that area, and quite a few seniors living in those townhouses and stuff, and it's a challenge to get across and up to the Meadowbrook. So I'm not sure what our options are for having a polling station. Have we ever had a polling station on that side
I
of the
don't have the information with me. I can certainly look at it. It does sound familiar in terms of the fact that we may have had one there. We make decisions on the polling stations based on numbers from past years. We try to distribute them evenly throughout the community, and sometimes we do cancel one if it has, for example, less than 200 people visiting that voting place on general voting day, just because it's not economically in the best interest. So, but I'll certainly go and look.
That'd be wonderful, because it could be that maybe we weren't getting many voters out in that area because they didn't have access to the poll. But if it is true that they just weren't using the poll, but I would like to know, because I found it interesting that they were talking about the 177 being canceled, and it was impacting them because by the time the bus got to them, now it was full, because I don't know where the 177 originates, or Coquitlam, I guess. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge for people that are transit dependent to get over there. That's all.
One other thing I'd like to note with the advanced voting is that they used to be only 2 that we had from 8 a.m. till 8 a.m., and the other 2 were from 9 till 5. But we have, in 2011, we started holding them all from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. So even if during the day somebody did have an appointment or something, they are open later in the evening and earlier in the morning, so that people could attend for a 12-hour period throughout the day.
Thank you. I just wanted to add a couple of comments. You mentioned that the first advanced voting opportunity, the one at Corea, is the most heavily used and has the greatest turnout, and that probably the fact that it's the first advanced voting opportunity has a good deal to do with that. But given that the letter that we got from Mr. Holt, comments that I've had from people have all come from people who would vote at Poirier, it is conceivable that we have a greater level of participation in democracy from that corner of the city than we do from some other parts. 8 is helpful, but given the hours people work and the length of time it takes to get home from downtown and so forth, weekday voting for some people is really not an option. But having an opportunity on the same Saturday at Poirier or on that side of the city, perhaps not even in the same location, I think would be a very helpful thing. But seeing as you only got May and I talking about it, I don't think that's
Don't just
I said I was looking for persuasive, and I don't think we're hitting persuasive. We're hitting the level of
I'd be
notes.
happy to take council direction if we wanted to.
Notes for
add
next time, perhaps.
additional.
Well, the goal is so that everyone that wants to vote gets to vote. And so,
Perhaps
yes,
I
you
could
had
say
something?
Well, I look at what the City of Vancouver is doing in terms of all their outreach and advanced voting opportunities and the number of polls that they've instituted this year, and I think it's amazing the efforts that they're going to try to get people to vote. So I guess, yeah, I mean, for next year especially, or next election especially, if we could just try to make sure it's as spread out as we can in different days and all that sort of thing, so that we, in some ways emulate what Vancouver's trying to do.
I'd be happy to look to see if there is an available room, and perhaps based on that, if there is, we could go forward. But if we do have to bump somebody, I'm not sure how council, because then we hear from those people that we're bumping as well. So.
Is there any chance you could do it in the lobby of the Corea Sport and Leisure Complex, a small poll on a Saturday?
Yeah, I could check into the logistics of that, but there are a number of privacy concerns
Right.
as well, and we have to make sure that if there were pictures of any current council members or names anywhere, those would all have to be covered.
It's not what I was referring to.
Sports Hall of Fame.
There we go.
That's a good idea.
There's a lot of people in that facility on a Saturday in
Yep.
November. So I just think if we could find an area in there, that would be fantastic.
I could hand out ballots.
Yeah, I do want to say, though, that in the last 6 years, the last couple of elections, the staff have seen have demonstrated an enormous passion for getting the vote out and for understanding, or rather for making sure the vote knows it can get out, and for expanding the opportunities for advanced polling, because that wasn't there. We have a greatly expanded advanced polling opportunity. People can, of course, vote now, even if they don't have a reason to need to vote in the advanced polls. They can vote in the advanced polls, and it's just more convenient for them. And hats off to the staff for the continued support in that. We can do more, perhaps, and let's be deliberate in the way we move forward and try and get more opportunities. Neil's
Probably the last thing I'll say. So speaking to cost, though, I believe our experience in the past has been that we typically in a general election year underspend our budget, and that rolls over from year to year, and too often some of us would agree is consumed by a by-election, but even then we're left a little over. And
That
so
is,
I don't think, I think our costage is not going to be a budget issue.
No.
Thank you.
Yep, fair enough. Okay.
So we'll wait to hear what you think.
all right. I will get back to you all by email.
Sorry if I can sum up your mission. I just did.
You did, yes.
Yeah.
Ms. Lula.
All right. Moving on to the fourth other business item has to do with Port Metro ban. I believe it was coal, and that was raised by Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. We got a letter from the City of New Westminster, acting mayor, expressing their concerns with the process that was followed in the approval for thermal coal at Fraser Docks, and I just thought it would be a good idea for us to discuss if we have the same kind of concerns, because we haven't discussed this as far as I know. And I personally feel the same way as the City of New Westminster in terms of the process that they followed and the issue. So that's why I brought it up.
Did they mention the bridge? Today's the day it's going to be done.
Really?
Yep.
Beautiful. They left that out.
Yep. Pretty good. May.
This came up at Metro, and I don't know if it came up to any of the committees. It didn't the committees that I sit on, and it didn't where Neil sits, and it didn't in parks at all. Craig?
It has come up.
Okay, well then I'll let you speak to what happened.
No, I just don't remember where we went with it. I think it was deferred back to Metro.
Basically, what I know of it, and I did check with Pete, because Pete knows all kinds of stuff about this. He knows all kinds of stuff about everything. So, but I did check with him on it. But from what I remember when it came up, and hopefully Richard and I will have the same memory, is that the kind of coal that they were trying to transport out of the U.S. and to get into Canada coming through the docks, this is Port Metro, was the nasty kind of coal that has, you know, the one with all the dust and pollutants and whatever else it has, so it's not the good kind. The thing that's, and basically, we didn't really have a vote at Port Metro because we don't really have the right to vote. This was notification to us, I believe, about what Port Metro was going to be doing. But the board, what concerns me on this letter was that the board apparently has not voted on this. According to this letter, the chief executive officer and not governing board of directors gave the project permit. So I have not heard anything for, what would you say, 4 months, Richard, from Metro? And there are a lot of us there. I don't want to do coal, and one of the reasons I don't want to do it is because Metro does have a piece of property that's on our border. And I don't particularly want to have coal coming into a beautiful new neighborhood that we're going to create, Fraser Mills, and have this dust and all that stuff going around. And I have a great deal of difficulty with it. So that's all I can tell you. But when I don't think we said we were going to get a vote either, and can I defer to the mayor to comment because
I've got the details on it.
the Metro details?
Yep.
Oh,
okay. Good. This comes from, and I remember when this happened because actually I remember talking to you about about the issue and then what the outcome of the vote was. The Metro Vancouver Board of Directors did have a vote, and after exhaustive discussion, and you guys had all sorts of reports and everything, and the board voted 21 to 4 to oppose the project. They sent the outcome of that vote to the Port of Vancouver, but the regional district does not have the power to block the new coal terminal at the Fraser Surrey docks. This was more of a this was sort of a suggestion and things like that. So that would be the same with the city of Coquitlam as well. We could, if we wanted to. I can't really. It'd be hard to turn back the clock now. I think the process has gone through where Metro, with the stronger body than Coquitlam, has spoken very clearly on this 21 to 4. I'm always open to discussing anything of interest to Coquitlam, but certainly not at this moment. I mean, we need to have a ton of information about it, but and so I'd like to know all the pros and cons. I wouldn't want to get into that now, and I'm not prepared to do that now. But it already has actually gone through up from the city level to a metro level. It seems to me, but maybe there's still a city role. I don't know. But anyway, it was 21 to 4, and that was a story from the Surrey North Delta Leader on June 14th. So this vote took place in the first bit of June.
So, if I may, what I do remember now, so we did vote on it, but the vote was sort of, why vote on it? Because we didn't have any real play or power in this. But one of the things that was very concerned, and I thought it was coming back to Metro, because I believe we did refer it also onto the health, the Fraser Health, and Vancouver Coast Health, and everybody else. And I have not at Metro got anything back. Have you, Richard?
I can't recall whether it's been in the 3,000 pages of agenda that I've reviewed at Metro in the last 3 months.
Well, me either. So, and I did remember it was 3 or 4 months ago. So that you're right in June. But I didn't think we voted because we had no power. But if we did vote, everyone is sort of on the same page here. Why is the CEO issuing something? Why do we not have something back from Fraser Health? There was one report that came in, but it wasn't what we had asked for. That's all I can tell you.
The Chief Medical Health Officer was diametrically opposed to this.
But what we had asked for at Metro.
Hey, Neil.
That's more or less what I was going to say.
Just
perhaps Terry still has the floor.
I guess
There was some more information I wanted to
Fair enough. I thought I gathered that was what you were presenting. Fair enough. Yours first.
Yeah. The only information that I didn't share was that apparently the Metro Board heard 40 different delegations over 6.5 hours. So it was pretty.
No, the board didn't.
Board didn't?
No.
Board delegated it
Committee
to
did.
Ah, the committee did, okay. You were part of that? Okay. So, I don't, and the fact of not having any real power, I mean, we pass motions on stuff we don't have power over, sending it to federal government, provincial government, requesting and hoping, crossing their fingers. We could still do the same here. We've done it. Metro did it. But at this stage, I think the horse has left the barn already on this one. Anyway.
Well, I'm still willing to chase the horse.
Thank you very much for allowing me to complete my thoughts. I'm sure you haven't completed them, but we'll stop you there. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure that you will continue to ponder. I think that this, stepping away from the specific issue of the cone for just a second, I believe there is an issue for the city of Coquitlam, for municipalities generally, as to the level of authority that Port Metro Vancouver has. Came up yesterday in a conversation I was having, and I said, Jesus Christ, it's the CPR all over again. We want to do whatever the hell we want, and then we'll take the hindmost. We had a communication from them within the last 3 months about changes they were making along our foreshores. And then suddenly, and we realized that they have the ability to suddenly decide that where BD proposes to build a nice pier and all that kind of stuff down in front of Fraser Mills could turn into a booming ground. And do whatever you like, and they do not appear to have anything approaching a good neighbor policy, and I think that I'm not going to make a motion or suggest we take action right this minute, but I think we should not forget about it, and perhaps we should be looking to UBCM and to FCM to talk to other levels of government about what are the authorities, and what's the reasonable authority in a broadly democratic society to have one body unaccountable to the people whose activities it impacts very directly. There are choices made by Port Metro Vancouver that change the way of life for people all over the Lower Mainland, and the people of the Lower Mainland have no ability to go and say, here's what I think, and here's what I think. But I believe we need to put our hand up and start to make some noise like that. But not today.
Wait for notice of motion.
Well, can we not
Send the same letter?
send the same letter or agree to send it to Port Metro, to Robin Sylvester, that we concur with whatever parts we concur with of this?
Okay, well, now we're at a point where council can't do it by ourselves, or committee can't, council
No,
could.
I'd like to see it go out quickly. You know what, this could be our neighbor.
Well, doing things, okay,
I'm quite concerned about
no,
this.
I recognize, we want to respond quickly in support of New Westminster because
No.
they would do the same, I agree.
No, Richard, no, and that was a very sarcastic comment.
It was, but today's the day.
And I'm not
so-
responding for New Westminster. They have brought it up. I'm responding for Coquitlam.
Yep,
So you don't have to agree with what New West
no,
is
I
saying.
agree,
You
I
can-
agree.
We'll refer to council this evening.
Second.
If that works, your worship.
What are we
Breaking
referring
new
to?
ground here.
What are we referring?
We're referring the issue, rather than bring it up tonight, we're referring it from here.
Which would give the clerk an opportunity to make new copies. Perhaps.
Go ahead.
I mean,
Clerk thought that was a good idea.
I just think it's important to take a stand, right? Councillor O'Neill says the horse has left the barn. Well, maybe the horse has left the barn, but 20 minutes ago you were talking about democracy. And if we don't assert our voices, if we don't take a stand, democracy
The horse
fails,
has
right?
left
And
the barn.
so,
Shout after it.
I think
The ball even I'm talking about.
all of this coal is coming from the U.S.
Yeah, because they don't want it.
And none of the U.S. courts want to move it, and we've agreed to take it. And I just think it's wrong It's not good for our community. Sure, it provides some jobs, but we have no idea the health impacts because the chief
Okay.
medical health officer was not consulted.
So tonight we'll need a motion to waive procedure, assuming you want to send it out now. Yeah, let's distribute the letter and let's get going.
I thought at council committee we've agreed to send letters a number of times over the.
Only on items that were already on the agenda.
Okay, because this was another business.
So in fact, if it were listed as another business item, then that's what our procedure is. I mean, it requires us to keep ourselves informed of those items so that if the motion gets made, but we've also typically allowed any council member that wanted an extra week to take the extra week. Unless it was urgent, yeah. In this case, it's 2 weeks. So we'll just need a motion to waive, that's all.
Which will happen.
For me, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Good. Madam Clerk.
Other business item 5 relates to medical marijuana letter received by the city. This was brought up by Councillor Wilson.
And in the same vein, you know, the fact that our city is not notified of where their people have licenses to grow medical marijuana. We talked about how it's not right, and I just was wondering, have we expressed our frustration and displeasure with the federal government?
Yes, we have.
Many times.
Over and over and over.
That was all I wanted to know.
Well, we can do it again.
I don't want to create another notice of motion tonight.
Done.
Thank you.
Save it for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Are we done?
We are.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Nichols. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Got a nice new clock.
The new clock on the wall says it's 3 minutes to 4.
And it's on time.
And so